our production under the bank flag. And then the lab is sort of our infused products division where we do extractions and various formulated products.
See, and we got back in the nerddom right there, and I kind of like it. So this is something Chris posed to Zach, who's joined us, and he kind of had a similar backstory. He was a Colorado, boy that had kind of dabbled in the black market side of the game, but had a lot of knowledge when it came time to when businesses started growing. Why aren't y'all wearing lab coats? Y'all are really missing a great marketing opportunity. Put your guys behind the crew behind the window or behind the partition. Put those guys in lab coats. And then y'all need to be walking around with like those. I'm just thinking it could be a lot more like Chernobyl and like all the other science shows. Like y'all should be wearing lab coats and those mask things. That's how I picture it, is like behind the walls.
Well,
thank you, scientist.
That's definitely one way to think about it. But again, because there wasn't this sort of preset format of the how's a weed dispensary supposed to look sort of thing, I think a lot of people went a lot of different ways. We were very much not wanting to come off like a glorified head shop. You see some of these stores where it's, looks like a dorm room with a cash register in it, I
know those places well.
There was a strong desire not to be that far to that side, but the lab coats and all that, we also didn't want to appear too stuffy and sterile,
I understand that. Dress comfortably for work, that's fair. I'll let them have it. I'll let y'all have that one.
And if you've ever been in a cultivation facility for any length of time, wearing a lab coat is about the least practical thing you could possibly be wearing in that sort of environment.
And we don't do a lot of on location unless it's at a bar. Shout out to our friends here at Broadway Market. But yeah, there's zero practicality to this little brainstorm I had right there. But thinking of things like half baked, it's like, oh well, thank you, scientist. And he runs off with them. Oh Maui wowie. That's what I think of when I think of y'all's company specifically, because it's like the lab, the bank, the clinic. I was like, I wonder if these people dress like the people at the bank or in
the
lab.
You'll see the lab jackets. In the actual extraction facilities, you'll see more of what you probably envision the production to look like. In the cultivation facilities, the uniforms are closer to what you might find at like a Jiffy Lube.
I can understand both of those. I've done a wide, immense amount of jobs. So shout out to our friends over at Cintas who sell those flammable shirts as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So y'all have been obviously mentioned like on the forefront since roughly around the Obama administration when things got a little bit nice.
Yeah, we started in 2009.
Okay, so we're looking at 10 years now, and we are in our 9th year of doing the Charity Golf Classic. Is that correct?
10th year, actually.
10th year.
This is CCCX.
The Roman...
The 10th annual.
Okay, nice. So we started this campaign, and I believe, we mentioned my buddy earlier, it's always been a sellout. This is a hot commodity, and by the time our friends are listening to this podcast, there's the likelihood is that there won't be very many tee times left available, because not only is it a 9-hole scramble at Arrowhead, but it's followed with a comedy show and a concert. So it seems, and this year our special premier guest is the Motet. Yep. So I would love to, let's talk a little bit about how it came to fruition, obviously 10 years ago, like early stages. Was it a marketing ploy to grow the brand? How did y'all kind of figure out a golf tournament was the jam?
Well, it came about a little more organically. Our sort of first foray into the world of philanthropy came through my family, actually, and my wife and I were getting ready to do our annual MS walk, where we'd have a friends and family team sort of work together to raise money for the National MS Society. And as we were getting ready for that, I sort of saw an opportunity within our company to sort of expand our efforts there. We had a lot of patients coming in to purchase at that point that had MS. We had a lot of folks that were impacted by this disease, so we decided that I pitched to the ownership that, we basically form a corporate team, put a little donation jar by the cash register, try to get our staff and patients all involved in raising money for the cause, and that I would provide a sort of for anybody who enjoys our industry, a very desirable prize
swag
for whoever
bag.
Was the ultimate top fundraiser for the cause.
Nice.
Disqualifying some of our sort of upper management and myself and all of that from eligibility there, but they jumped right on board. They had been kind of looking for some way to get involved in that side of things, and we had the natural connection there. in addition to my wife having MS, my father actually had MS when I was a child as well and passed away when I was rather young. So it's really a cause really near and dear to my heart, and something that we've now been very heavily involved with. And when we first started having the corporate team, that was a real leap of faith for the National MS Society to even allow a cannabis company to be this.
How are they? Were they like, here's a big check, as I like to think, Happy Gilmore?
It wasn't that sort of thing. I basically called their sort of main line there. They put me in touch with a lady named Kaylin. It was Daniels at the time. It's now Downer, but who was the Walk MS manager at the time, and put me in touch with her about forming a corporate team, and they were. I think justifiably a little hesitant to begin with. They did not know how we were going to proceed with things. They had to talk to their legal team and, see how we could go about all this. Because, it was a state legal business, but there was some tricky legal hurdles there. And
was it similar to like the banks? Like they were like, I don't know if I want the weed money.
A little bit. They have to be very concerned about, if basically it looks like the money coming to them is from the sale of a Schedule I narcotic. That is a big concern of theirs. And so, we couldn't be an official sponsor for anything or just be check writers and anything like that. But what we could do is raise funds organically for the cause. It definitely helped that I, had a friends and family team prior to that, so sort of had a long-standing history of helping raise money for them. But again, they went out on a pretty good limb for us because they didn't know how we were going to show up at their fundraising events, if we were going to have, a bong in one hand and a big Bob Marley joint in the other, and, if this was going to, fall flat on its face. But, luckily we weren't those people, and I had actually told Kaylin this before we even had our first MS Walk event. I could see 10 years down the road us being your biggest fundraiser for this if things go as I foresee them. And we were a little ahead of the schedule there. I think it was in our 4th or 5th year of doing this that we became the top corporate fundraising team for Walk MS in the Colorado-Wyoming region.
Man, that's awesome. And it seems like every time you put your head or your heart into something, you do it at 100% and you kick ass at it. Whether it be turning from a mechanical engineer to a botanist, I think that's the proper scientist, I don't know. Or whether it's, taking the philanthropy thing, like when you have something near and dear to your heart, then you work with everything in your passion and ability to do it. And so one thing you've been able to do is you've reached a lot of folks. This golf tournament, 10 years running now.
Yeah.
It's only grown, not only in size, but in popularity. And now, this year as it comes upon us, I mean, this is going to be our biggest year yet. Would you agree?
Yeah, we're definitely hoping so. There's kind of a format change this year. We've had a couple changes throughout the years. Obviously, as the event has grown, we've had to mature with our industry. At the first year, it was mostly, sort of friends and family there at the event, other companies we worked with, but much smaller sponsorship levels, much more of a, first year we didn't know if we were going to turn a profit even doing this. We were kind of thrilled if we could cover our costs and have some little remainder to donate at the end of things. But, we've made sure, number one, that this event is an absolute blast. Anybody who's there, if you're not having a great time, you had your mind set on you were having a good time coming into this, because everybody is there to have fun, and it brings together, a lot of the industry who are naturally competitors of each other, but they sort of set aside all their differences for this day, have a great time, and raise a ton of money for a great cause.
Man, and you're not lying. So when you talk about the competitors and those putting, I guess capitalistic, things to the side, some of the biggest names definitely in the industry, Pax Vapor, Chiba Chews, Arrowhead Golf Course, easily, top 100 golf courses in America. If you're a good golfer, unlike myself, then you can come out here and you can enjoy checking off a bucket list round. When we were filling out our foursome, I have a buddy I used to work with a sports blog, and he's a scratch golfer up in New York. I was like, "You gonna come down here and dominate?" He was like, "No, I won't be able to make it out there, but give me the link to donate, so I will." And shout out to Maddie Marks. We appreciate it. And for those that are listening, you can see that on our Facebook page. Also link on all of our social media. So if you aren't able to make it out for the tournament this year, it's August 9th, you are still able to donate to a great cause. And what is it, National MS, or are we working with the Rocky Mountain MS? You mentioned Colorado and Wyoming.
Originally, we had done everything for the National MS Society, which their local chapter involves both the state of Colorado and Wyoming. As things have grown and progressed, we've sort of expanded our the entities to which we're donating money to, and now we're giving to both the National MS Society and the Rocky Mountain MS Center.
Nice. Okay, that's it. MS Center. Gotcha.
And they're the sort of the difference there. The Rocky Mountain MS Center helps fund research for into MS in general, as does the National MS Society. But they're another local charity for the cause, and basically, the pie became big enough that we were making sure we were, sort of spreading things around and, doing everything we could to bring an end to this disease and attacking it from multiple angles.
And y'all are doing the Lord's work, fighting the battles that, it seems like it's always uphill. So our thoughts and prayers are with y'all in that concept and in all capacities. Before we move on, I do want to know this. I'm a pretty big golf fan. I've traveled the world to watch Tiger Woods play. I'm a shitty fucking golfer. How did you shift? And this is a little more levity. How did you shift? You're like, you know what? I'm sick of walking in the goddamn heat. I'm not a bad golfer. Let's start playing a little golf. What was the methodology in that? Like, let's do this on a golf course instead of start continuing with the walk. I'm thankful for that. Not a hiker.
Where that came out from was our former general manager, Ryan Cook. He had every year for his birthday what we used to refer to as the Blueberry Open, would have a golf tournament with our buddies where we'd raise hell on the golf course, drink and smoke way too much, and have, kind of a shit show of a day out there on the golf course. And he saw that birthday event of his as sort of an additional fundraising opportunity. At the time, we were looking at, beyond just the MS Walk event, how could we do more for the cause that wasn't directly related to that MS Walk event, and sort of put our own stamp on things, host our own event. And it took a little toying around with. We came up with the golf tournament, and that definitely took off the most and became, our by far and away our biggest event. But there were times where we would, for our company holiday party, we'd rent out Cervantes, get a musical act and sell tickets to the public to our, staff Christmas party and donate all the, proceeds to the charity. And again, we played around with a lot of different ideas. The golf tournament was one of them and has ultimately, been the most successful one and kind of where we put most of our effort into these days, because it's where we get the most returns instead of both exposure and in donation dollars.
I mean, let's call a spade a spade. If it was a marijuana-themed tennis or basketball 3-on-3 tournament, they don't necessarily play hand in hand. As a non-sativa guy, in fact, it gives me the willies. I'm starting to sweat on my neck just thinking of sativa. Golf pairs perfect, and so for those that are playing or are trying to see if there's still a possible tee time, check right now. Go over to the clinic. You get the 9-hole course. You get fed. Like you said, there's going to be cart girls out there, and then an epic swag bag will be involved. And then we have, kind of on par with the Cervantes thing. You've kind of merged all of these great ideas from the debauchery that was your buddy's birthday parties and the Cervantes Christmas party into this one funked up Friday. And so you got the motet, and I'm going to ask you to pull your strings after this episode because I need new intro music for my podcast. Gotcha. And I hear that they, actually I don't hear, I know for a fact that they fucking slap. So Motet, this is an open invite. We would love for you to make our new intro song.
I'd be happy to make, the introduction there, and I think they'd be more than willing to do us the favor here.
They're going to hate you for referring me to them afterwards, but we'll dive into that later.
Yeah.
I'm kind of an obnoxious asshole. All right, so we've talked a little bit about, the golf tournament, how you kind of got into the industry.
Before we move on from that, really quick, if you don't mind, I would like to say, listeners, if you are looking to be a part of the golf tournament and you look online and there aren't any foursomes still available, check back in every couple days. We actually have a couple that we've reserved for potential sponsors that may or may not be bringing extra people. So at some point, we are going to release those leftover ones to the public. So even if it does appear are sold out. Please don't give up. Check back in and see if we do that. Or if you follow us on any social media platform, we'll be sure to make the announcement if we do release the additional foursomes to the public.
And give them that website one more time. Obviously, it'll be on our Facebook, on our social media at No Vacancy Colorado. You can find it at the clinic.